The purpose of this session is to gain an understanding of status of residence and career path to consider before going to Japan. Working in Japan. Living in Japan. Lesson 1. Outline. These study materials are intended for people who hope to work in Japan in the future or who already have plans to work in Japan in the future. Now, let's get started with the session. First, please listen to the experiences of some people who have gone before you to work in Japan.
最初日本聞いてすごく緊張しました。ワクワクして、日本は元は日本の漫画が大好きなので、日本来て働く機会がありますので、心がワクワクしてすごく期待しました。だけど、現実ちょっと辛かった。最初は仕事は慣れなかったので、ちょっと大変でしたけど、みんなが優しい教えてもらいましたので、仕事は3年間簡単になりました。
Working in Japan has the potential to add greatly to your experience and career development. However, it is important to gather as much accurate information as possible before you go so that you do not end up with regrets when things are not as you expected, or you realize you were not prepared enough. So, how can you actually get accurate information about living and working in Japan? If you search on the internet, you can find guidebooks and videos for foreign nationals working in Japan, which are made by Japanese government and public institutions, so make sure to gather necessary information. Lesson 2. Statuses of residence and career paths. You must obtain a status of residence in order to work in Japan. Various conditions differ depending on your status, so make sure to check what status you will have when you go to Japan. Typical statuses of residence include technical intern trainee, specified skilled worker, engineer, specialist in humanities, international services, and student. Work style and career paths in Japan vary for each status of residence, so make sure to check the respective details. We'll start with technical intern training. This status of residence is for trainees to study technology while working in Japan. Through this system, they can acquire skills possessed by Japanese companies while working at those companies. It is one form of international cooperation conducted by the Japanese government with the purpose of trainees using their skills in their own countries after their stay in Japan. Trainees work in various industries, such as agriculture, fishing, construction, food manufacturing, machinery, and metals. The Specified Skilled Worker 1 status of residence was newly created in April 2019. There are certain jobs in predetermined industries, such as senior nursing care and building cleaning, and knowledge or experience in each field is required. Those who come to Japan on this status are expected to be able to work immediately and demonstrate their competence. Next, let's look at the status of engineer, specialist in humanities, international services. This is a status of residence that allows you to work in a highly specialized field, making use of the specialized knowledge you have acquired at a university or similar institution. One such example is in engineering. Specialists in humanities can work in a company's planning or marketing department, while specialists in international services can do work that requires the daily use of the Japanese language, such as interpreting. The last status we'll see is student. In principle, it is not possible to work under this status of residence. You can, in principle, Work part-time or do an internship for up to 28 hours per week if you get a so-called permission to engage in activity other than that permitted by the status of residence. However, exceeding 28 hours per week is prohibited by law, and some scholarship recipients may be prohibited from working, so you'll need to confirm these points. Working conditions differ depending on status of residence, so make sure you know which status of residence you will have when you go to Japan. Status of residence can be changed to a different status of residence by following set procedures. What kind of experience can you obtain by working in Japan? Here we will introduce career paths. Most people have heard the term career path, which means the course of your work history. Specifically, it refers to the path you can follow toward your career goals, such as the necessary skills and experience, and the order of steps you must take to reach your career goals. Have you considered your career path, including what kind of career you will build and what future you aim to achieve using the experience you acquire by working in Japan? Careers are explained in detail in other study materials, so please make sure to watch those lectures as well. Here we introduce as a reference the career path of Chenfinith, who works as an automotive mechanic in Japan. Chenfinith was working as an automotive mechanic in Cambodia, but came to Japan to learn automotive mechanics skills and gain experience. In the future, he hopes to return to Cambodia and start his own mechanics garage. Lesson 3. Imagine your work in Japan. First, you should try to get an image of what kind of job you will do in Japan. For example, looking at the percentage of foreign workers by the industries in which they work, the manufacturing industry is most common at 27%, followed by the service industry, not otherwise classified, at 16.3%, and wholesale, retail industry at 13.3%. On the other hand, while there are fewer foreign workers in these industries, there are high expectations for their future performance in medical care, welfare, construction, and agriculture, forestry. Let's take a look at those who came to work in Japan before you with the status of residence engineer, specialist in humanities, international services. I carefully check and prepare materials that I will probably use for work that day. I straighten up my appearance and arrive at work on time every day. I make effective use of my time on the train, such as by reading study materials for obtaining certifications. Next, I have an online meeting with technical members in Tokyo. I share and check on progress made in projects and problems that have arisen. After that, I take my lunch break. Some people eat box lunches in the office, others eat outside, each enjoying their lunch breaks in different ways. I continue with development work. I look back on the process of trial and error to finish my tasks. I upload the latest data to our internal social media, and write a report. We do project review in a conference room. I listen to a progress report by the person responsible for the development side of the project that I am working on, and check if there is any discrepancy from the customer's wishes and expectations. I handle various miscellaneous duties, answering emails, writing daily reports, and go home once my day's work is done. On my way home, I buy ingredients for dinner at a supermarket or convenience store near home. Cooking is a hobby of mine. It's a nice change of pace. Improving my skills helps raise my salary. I spend time at home studying for certification tests. As for working hours, most foreign workers report working between 5 and 6 days per week for roughly 40 hours. Many also mention working between 5 and 10 hours of overtime per week. Overtime work is managed by agreements between labor and management. If there is a violation of the law, such as overtime hours being too long or overtime work not being paid for, and the accepting company will be subject to punishment. If you face any issues, there is a consultation desk at our affiliated organization in Japan, so please use this as a reference. The average monthly wage for each status of residence is 164,100 yen for technical intern trainee, 194,900 yen for specified skilled worker, and 326,500 yen for engineer, specialist in humanities, international services. However, please note that compensation depends on the region and type of work. When it comes to wages, there's the gross pay, which is what the company pays out, and the net pay, or take-home pay, which is what the worker actually gets to keep after various deductions have been made. People who work for a Japanese company will usually receive the net pay, and not the gross pay, and their employer will take care of paying the deductions directly to the specific institutions. Deductions include taxes paid to the municipalities in which you live, premiums for insurance in case you get sick or injured outside of work, insurance in case you lose your job, contributions to the pension system for when you grow old and can no longer work, and so on. Some companies also deduct money for meals eaten in the company cafeteria or for room and board expenses. Lesson 4. Imagine your life in Japan. So, were you able to get an image of working in Japan? Next we will talk about where you will live in Japan. Whether or not you already know where you will work in Japan, this will be an important part of your daily life, so please remember it well. Japan is long from north to south, and the climate varies greatly depending on where you live. There are 4 distinct seasons, and many foreign nationals are caught off guard by the extreme differences in temperature between summer and winter. Well then, let's hear from those who went before you to work in Japan. Is winter cold in Japan?
寒いけど、多分ベトナムの冬はもっと寒い。ベトナムは雪降ってないけど、感じる冷たい感じるはもっと違う。ベトナムはもっと寒い。
Your daily life will also change greatly depending on whether you live in an urban or rural area. Upsides of living in an urban area include highly developed public transportation, making it more convenient to get around and go shopping, and the fact that restaurants are open late at night. Upsides of living in rural areas include proximity to nature, making it possible to live a more relaxed life, and frequent interaction with other members of the community, meaning that there is a culture of neighbors being quick to help each other in times of need. Let us hear once again from those who went before you to work in Japan. What are the advantages of working in an urban area?
一つは、なんか企業数と、求人数がもう多いので、それは就職する時は、ちょっと簡単ではないですけど、でもなんか選択肢の豊富にあることだと思います。 仕事以外は、なんか、行楽施設場所はなんかもう多いので、まあ、もちろん仕事モチベーションをなんか、まあ、高める。
もう東京と横浜にもうそろそろ9年間住んでいますと、東京になんかまだ行ったことない場所は結構多いです。毎週の週末に楽しいイベントとか祭りとかもよくあるんですね。東京で住む場合はなんか生活は結構面白いだと思う。
買いたいのものはすぐ買えるし、行きたいのところはすぐ行けます。
What are the disadvantages of working in an urban area?
家は横浜だけど、なんか仕事は綾瀬。それはちょっときついですね。なんかオフィスに来るのは1時間半かかりますね。なんか私の国となんか前の経験の別府も東京の生活と全然違います。エストニアはすごくちっちゃい国、自然が多いです。最初に東京に引っ越した時にそれはちょっと感じたんです。なんか自然があんまりないとか。
高いんです高いと、あと毎日過ごすのはすごく早いの感じがします。前は茨城県に住んでた時はなんか結構毎日ゆっくりの感じしまして、もちろん仕事の関係もあるんですけど、でもすごく早いの、毎日早いの感じがしますね。
What are the advantages of working in a rural area?
みんなの優しさです。
きれいところですよ。空気も、いいですから。もしみんなは、街はうるさいはこっち来てください。本当に静かですよ。はい。
What are the disadvantages of working in a rural area?
駅とかバスもこっちはあまりないから。もし車運転できるはこっち来てください。
In urban areas, public transportation is often used to commute to work, and the cost is typically paid by the company in the form of transportation expenses. In rural areas, it is also common to commute to work on foot or on a bicycle, so it seems that more foreign workers living in rural areas live close to the destination of their commute. Also, many regions have plenty of supermarkets and convenience stores in both urban areas and rural areas alike. This makes it more convenient to procure food ready to eat, but unfortunately there are almost no street vendors where you can cheaply and easily buy ingredients for cooking. There are several things to pay attention in daily life. Here are some typical examples. First, 41% of foreign nationals were reportedly confused about garbage disposal. In Japan, garbage is typically separated into burnable, unburnable and recyclable waste, and trash collection days vary depending on the type of garbage. For example, in one area of Tokyo's Shibuya ward, recyclables such as plastic and glass bottles are collected on Mondays, burnable trash is collected on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and unburnable trash is collected on every third Tuesday of the month. Rules for putting out garbage differ depending on the region where you live, so make sure to check once you know where you live. Let's go on to life in apartment buildings. Make sure to keep your apartment clean and try not to bother your neighbors or landlord by damaging the building in any way. Any area outside of your particular apartment is shared with other tenants, and is not your own personal space. Do not leave personal items in the hallways or on the stairs or talk loudly with friends, as this can cause problems with neighbors. The walls of apartment buildings are thin, so you can often hear sounds from the rooms above, below, and next door to you. Therefore, please refrain from making loud noises, such as by having parties with many guests or playing musical instruments late at night. Then there are the traffic rules. Pedestrians must obey traffic signals, and when crossing the street, look right and left to make sure the coast is clear before crossing. Never cross where crossing is prohibited. Bicyclists should ride on the left side of the road. Always stop at stop signs and confirm that it's safe. In Japan, there is a system for bicycle crime prevention registration, which is mandated for all cyclists. This registration is important, as it clarifies ownership, and is used for early recovery in the event of bicycle theft, as well as to return confiscated bicycles. Please note that in some prefectures there are regions which mandate bicycle liability insurance, and that ordinances differ depending on the area where you live. When you enroll in the bicycle liability insurance of your choice, you can rest assured knowing that you will be compensated for damage caused by accidents. To register or enroll, inquire with a bicycle vendor such as a bicycle shop, mass retailer, or home improvement center, or a non-life insurance company or insurance agent. Keep up your Japanese language studies. The number of people who can speak English in Japan is limited, and most communication takes place in Japanese. Studying the Japanese language not only before but also after your arrival in Japan will help to make your life and work easier. You can communicate often with Japanese people in your company and neighborhood, and attend Japanese language classes in your region or use Japanese language learning apps and websites to improve your language skills. Well then, let's hear from those who went before you to work in Japan. Have you ever had a hard time because you could not speak Japanese?
日本に来たばっかりの時、言葉が足りなくて表現したいものがなかなかできなかったので、もう結構困りました。
Tell us how to study Japanese.
毎日単語とか漢字とかノートに書いて、単語を増やして、日本人に会う時に日本語スムーズに喋れるように努力しています。
This information will help you narrow the gap between your expectations and the reality of your life and work in Japan, and will also be of great help to you in achieving your future career path. Do your research on the internet or talk to people who have worked in Japan before to gather information about the country and get a good idea of what it will be like to live and work in Japan. Putting in this effort will surely help you to build up an even stronger career in Japan.